Please welcome Atlantic Senior Editor, Ron Brownstein.
Good morning, everybody. And now for the moment that has brought us all together, the Renewal Awards and hearing from this year's winners, which is a great highlight. Brought to you by the Atlantic and Allstate, as you've heard. In its third year, the Renewal Awards are a nationwide competition recognizing local organizations delivering positive change in their communities. This year, we had nearly 3,000 nominations. And out of that, we have selected 5 winners and 5 runners-up. And as you'll see, I think it's pretty apparent why they have emerged at the top of a very arduous and strenuous competition. It is my honor to present the 2017 Renewal Award winners. The Hazleton Integration Project provides educational, community, and sports programming for this Pennsylvania city's disadvantaged families, including many new immigrants.
So by bringing the children together, by offering them quality activities, by keeping them off the street, we knew we could have a major impact.
Founded by Chicago Cubs manager and Hazleton native Joe Maddon, the group runs the Hazleton One Community Center, which serves more than 1,000 kids a week.
I have this tendency to think big whenever I get involved in something. The thing that really stood out to me is we needed some place for the kids to go after school while the parents are still working. And it made all the sense in the world.
Austin's Con Mi Madre empowers young Latinas and their mothers by providing education and support services to increase preparedness, participation, and success in post-secondary education.
We spend 5 years getting our mothers and daughters prepared academically, socially, emotionally, and financially for the college experience.
All of the participating high school seniors thus far have graduated, and more than 3/4 have enrolled directly into post-secondary education.
Our goal is to help every single Latina that comes through our program to successfully obtain her college education.
Light, Let's Innovate Through Education, works to close the wealth gap in Memphis by equipping young entrepreneurs of color with the skills they need to launch scalable businesses. An 8-year program, Light connects students ages 17 to 25 with mentors, coaches, and access to capital.
Once you find a passion in a student, they're willing to learn a lot more and go far beyond what the books teach them. So I've realized that once they start solving a problem that they're passionate about and we help them find a unique value, help them find a solution to that problem that they want to solve, you indirectly start seeing them advancing in all these core skills, but more importantly, in their confidence.
Based in Oakland, California, A New America expands economic opportunity for disadvantaged communities by helping residents create new businesses.
You will take a 15-week course, and during that course, you will develop a business plan.
Over the years, A New America has helped thousands of immigrants, women, and people of color launch businesses throughout the Bay Area.
This will be an opportunity to get you the little push and extra help that you need to start off your business.
New Orleans Youth Empowerment Project helps out-of-school and disconnected youth strengthen their ties to the community and develop the skills they need to succeed.
We have a responsibility to give all of our kids a fair shot in terms of ensuring that they have the love and the support and the skills and the opportunities they need to thrive and to survive.
Through education, mentoring, employment, and enrichment services, YEP has served over 1,200 children across the past 13 years.
That's what I like about YEP. That's what I love, not like, that's what I love about YEP.
Runners-up for this year's awards are Farms, a nonprofit in Rock Hill, South Carolina, expands economic opportunity for farmers and landowners. Charlotte, North Carolina's Profound Gentleman works to dismantle the cradle-to-prison pipeline by building a community of male mentors and educators of color. Fuji's Academy is an Atlanta private school that provides tuition-free education for refugee students from around the world. Soldiers Angels, a national nonprofit based in San Antonio, provides aid and comfort to the men and women of the United States military, veterans, and their families. San Francisco's Summer Surge, the runner-up for the Youth Empowerment Award, works to close the achievement gap and increase the number of college graduates from low-income backgrounds. Congratulations to all of our winners. We're going to hear from the winners in a moment, but before we do, I'd like to ask a round of applause for our 5 runners-up. It was a very, as one of the judges I can attest, it was a very tight competition, and it was very difficult for the judges to differentiate between those they put in the very inner circle and those just beyond it. It was terrific organization. So, would they please stand? Farms, Profound Gentlemen, Fuji Academy, Soldiers Angels, and Summer Search. Thank you. I'd also like to thank our judges who put in a lot of time. Brooks Rainwater, Cecilia Munoz, Eric Liu, Hector Barreto, Tara Liebert, and Levante Stewart, 2 of last year's winners, Pete Weiner, Amy Thompson, and Jennifer Roberts. Thank you for all of your work. And now, to help present the awards, it's my pleasure to invite Cynthia from Allstate, Cynthia Whitfield Story from Allstate, back to the stage. We got to wander over to the other side.
Yes, sir.
From the Hazleton Integration Project, please welcome founding president Robert Curry. From Con Mi Madre, please welcome Executive Director Teresa Granillo. From Let's Innovate Through Education, please welcome Executive Director Pamela Yurketa. From A New America, please welcome CEO Steve Dial. Accepting the Allstate Youth Empowerment Award, please welcome Melissa Sawyer, the co-founder and executive director of New Orleans' own Youth Empowerment Project. Congratulations to the 2017 Renewal Award winners. Back to you, Ron.
Thank you.
Here, we forgot that instruction.
Don't want to lose those. You know, as I mentioned, this was a pretty rigorous competition. And I think in talking to the judges, one thing that made all of your organizations rise to the top out of the 3,000 or so was how comprehensive a set of services you offer. In many cases, dealing with families and young people over a long period of time, from elementary or middle school all the way through college. In other cases, offering a very broad range of services. I'd like to ask, maybe as a way of starting, each of you to talk a little bit about the range of services you offered when you started, what you're doing now, and why and how it changed in between. Bob, maybe you can start us off.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Atlantic and certainly Allstate for your support. This is an extraordinary moment for all of us up here, and I just wanted to say thank you so much. But yeah, I think all of us here sitting on this panel would say one thing that we have in common, and that is we listen carefully when the people that we're serving, they have needs that go so far beyond what we initially thought. One example of that would be very clear. My wife, who is here with me today, talks about how poverty, if you don't understand the face of poverty, you're never going to be able to affect change. And one of the ways that we see this is with technology. So When we opened our doors, we never envisioned a place that would have 26 computers that we now have. We have a computer lab because 40%, fully 40% of the people or the children that come through our doors don't have access to computers, don't have smartphones. And of course, as the school district moves ahead with technology, they say, oh, everything is online. So we've got an enormously active computer lab that exists every day from the time school gets out until we close our doors. So that's one extension. But we also start looking at not just treating children. If we're trying to really affect change and level that playing field, we're also looking at entire families, and that's what we've seen, the growth. So all of a sudden, instead of just having programs for kids, we have over 125 adults in ESL classes because we have a lot of English language learners in our community. We've got GED classes, we have citizenship classes. None of these were envisioned when we started our project, but we just have to expand to meet the need that actually exists.
Teresa?
Yeah, similar to Bob's experience. And we started in 1992 based on the statistic that a Latina baby girl in the Austin area had a less than 1% of chance of going to college. So, okay, let's tackle that. Started in 6th grade and thought it was just going to be a 6th grade program. At the end of that 1 year of working with the girls and their mothers, the moms and the daughters said, well, what about next year? And what do we do from here? And so the program extended on. This, again, started to snowball in 2012. Same issue was happening where the students came back to us and said, hey, we're struggling through college. You got us to this point, and you congratulated us as we walked the stage to go to the next chapter, but now we need more support, and so we've had to answer the need. And it's now extended our programming from 6th grade all the way through to college graduation. And similar to Bob's experience, we've always done a mother-daughter program. It's a 2-gen program where we engage moms in every step of the educational process with their daughters. What we were seeing was an unintended positive consequence that moms were becoming empowered to go back to school themselves. And we went, oh my goodness, there is something powerful here. Let's support them. Let's provide them with the pathway for that. We just launched a new program that actually does more focused parent training in terms of education, but also workforce development. And it's a partnership with the schools that we work with. So it's actually being delivered in the schools. So the school gets the benefit of having parent engagement and parents on campus. And the parents get the benefit of the programming, but also being able to be engaged with their child's education on that campus. So lots of different services that have come about over the last 26 years because there's a need.
Yeah, so just like what they were saying, is we all envisioned one first tiny step that grew into hopefully one day a really big empire as we continue to grow. But ours actually just started in a classroom with 3 students where we saw that these students were just given like a problem to solve and they loved it, but we challenged them to actually go out there and solve that problem. So the original founder had, ventured out to seek capital to give them money to solve that problem. And when we realized that these students were not just seeing an opportunity to solve this problem, they were also wanting to expand their business, we saw that there was like a need for this. And once we looked at the numbers, less than 1% of the money that's generated by African-American owned businesses in Memphis, yet Memphis is 67% African-American, and we saw that there was a need for this even more. So
the city is 67% African-American, but less than 1% of the business revenue in the city is generated by businesses owned by African-Americans.
Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely. So, as we all know, the numbers show that we need to continue growing, but we created an 8-year timeline, and now several volunteer systems for the first 6-month accelerator program for the high school students and now for the college students. And it's not just giving them businesses to start or giving them capital and networks, but it's also paid internships because we understand that they're in a financial predicament. So we literally partner them up with other mentors and other businesses that could potentially help them out in their business career over this 8-year pipeline. Yeah. So there's a lot of work to be done, but we're excited.
Steve.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Allstate and also the Atlantic. We are very humbled by this recognition. For us, change has been a couple of different ways. First, when we first started 19 years ago, our mission was to help new Americans. So that was immigrants, refugees, in terms of leveraging entrepreneurship to get their piece of the American dream. But what happened was the 2008 financial crisis and the impact that that had across communities made us realize that we need to service the other members of our community that are severely impacted. So the board made a decision to expand our formal mission to include people of color, minorities, low to moderate income individuals. Now, along the way, we had served different groups, but the formalization of it, I think, really helped in terms of showing that, you know, if we have something that we can help in our community and use it as a means to bring people together and try to break down some of the barriers that are created, that, you know, this was our opportunity to do it. So I think that's one of the ways, you know, we've evolved.
And it's wonderful to be in front of so many friends and to have the Atlantic and Allstate here in New Orleans. And again, we're grateful to be able to showcase, you know, all of the wonderful things going on in the city, but still how much yet we still have to do. YEP's story, and some of you all may know this, we started as the first juvenile reentry program in the state of Louisiana. YEP was founded in the wake of the Juvenile Justice Reform Act of 2003, working with young people coming back to the New Orleans region who'd been incarcerated and removed from their homes. Part of the impetus as well was losing young people to street violence. Within the 6-month period before we started YEP, 6 young men I worked with were murdered coming home. And it really got to this tipping point for us where if our children are safer in what are really archaic, terrible penitentiaries, but they're safer there than they are at home, we are failing our children. And it's not enough to get kids out of jail. We need to ensure that they have the supports and their family have the supports that they need to truly thrive and actualize their potential. So YEP was really small when we started. We've always had our home base on Aretha Castle Haley Boulevard in Central City. We were fortunate not to flood during the storm, so we really felt, again, a sense of responsibility to come back and to continue to help after we helped the state of Louisiana do some statewide work, but also working in Texas, reconnecting kids and families to services. And when we came back, there weren't enough schools open, and there was a lot of especially high school age kids who were just kind of hanging out by our office. And then we thought, well, we need to do something about this. Adult illiteracy is a huge issue in our community, one we don't talk about enough. At that point, we started what is now No Play, which has been championed by the City Council and the City of New Orleans, as well as through a partnership with the Louisiana Community Technical College System and local partners. And today we're the largest organization working with opportunity out of school and court-involved young people, running 11 different programs.
11 different programs. And dealing with kids from as young as 7
Correct.
to as old as 24, and even as you were explaining beyond that with your adult literacy. What is the key to maintaining a relationship with some? I mean, how do you keep people engaged for that many years in the program?
I think part of the challenge that we find, and we talked about this a lot last night, was when you're looking at oftentimes federal public streams, they fund folks, but it stops when someone's 18, or it stops when someone's 21, or they don't need crisis intervention. But we know that that's not how life is. People don't live in silos. Life is fluid. We're always dealing with challenges, and so we always need to ensure that we have a caring, compassionate, secure safety net for all of us. We all need that. And I think young people know who's authentic and who truly cares. Young people recognize people from their communities who are working in organizations like YEP, who are there for the long haul, who aren't there for the paycheck, but because they actually truly care about what they're doing. And I think, again, last night as we were talking, this is a mission. It's really a labor of love. It's not a job. And I think anyone who commits themselves to trying to address a social challenge, and for us in the wake of Katrina, we had so many other problems to want to solve, but you know, I see some amazing community partners in the audience. You need to stay in your lane, and we try to be really clear on what is our core purpose, what are our core values, what do we need to build upon, what are the community and our young people asking for, but not doing something outside of our purview that we can't really excel at.
Let me ask, you know, one thing that has changed is in the late 20th century, most major cities were losing population, they were struggling economically. That's not really the case anymore. It's not true for everybody on the stage, but many of you are operating in places that are booming. I mean, that are, almost all of them are gaining population, and many of them are seeing a big economic upturn, a lot of young professionals coming in. I'm interested, Austin certainly would qualify as that. Does that is that relevant to the lives of the families you work with? Does it create more opportunity for them? Or in some ways, does it create more strains on them? Are they benefiting at all from the growth that we are now seeing in so many cities?
The answer is yes and no.
Yes and no.
So on one hand, the growth, particularly in Austin, the gentrification that's happening in our city is pushing the families that we serve out of the city, and actually has resulted in us having to then also expand our services outside of the city. And so there's that issue of affordability and transportation issues that comes with a booming city that wasn't prepared for the boom. And then there's the opportunity, and I think what we've seen is that our millennials, our younger population that is either grown into the city or moving in, they are charged up. They are ready, they're activated, they're ready to do community work, they're ready to get involved. And so we've really seen a lot more community involvement in that way, and in mentoring our girls and being a participant, whether that even fundraising. I mean, this younger group is really charged up. So that's been pretty, it gives us hope.
Steve, no place is booming more than the Bay Area. What is that? But has that
if you can live there.
Yeah, right. Has that radiated out to provide opportunity for the families and the entrepreneurs that you work with?
I think for the majority of population, it has presented a strain. Bay Area and roughly, I think latest statistics, you need about a household income of $170,000 in order to buy a home. You have rents of one-bedroom rents, $3,000 in San Francisco, probably $2,000 in Oakland. So it doubly impacts the communities that we serve. And it's a huge issue. And government, nonprofit, other individuals are trying to figure out how do you solve it. And I think in the current environment, our work almost becomes doubly important, because not only do you have the affordability issue, you have the issue of the change in jobs. It's no longer, I'll go and work at this place for 10 years. Maybe they'll hire me as a consultant for 12 months, and then 12 months later, I need to go somewhere else. Yeah. So we're in a gig economy. So how do you really provide stability for individuals under that? So that's where having a quote-unquote side hustle or entrepreneurship is going to become increasingly important for people to have some means of affordability so they can stay.
How about in New Orleans, which has regained population, has seen more business activity? What's it meant for the young people that you work with?
I think it's complicated. I think for us, when young people come through our doors who are of working age, about 78% of them are unemployed. If we're looking at the number of folks who are really struggling to survive, to thrive, to take care of their families, two of the issues I'm becoming increasingly fascinated with, because they're not in my wheelhouse, are housing and transportation, and just how everything is so inexorably linked, and that all of these come together. If you don't have transportation to get to your job that you need to make a family-sustaining wage to take care of your family, then everything is interrelated. And so I think that we need to stop siloing issues and really take a holistic sort of approach to how are we going to address these issues that are very complicated, to ensure, as Walter said earlier, there's a level of equity, and we're looking at this work through an equity lens about who are the folks who are actually benefiting from this change, and how do we ensure that those who currently aren't are actually engaged with and connected to the opportunity.
All of you are working with groups that, to a large extent, are excluded from some of the positive things that have been happening in the economy in the last few years, that are facing gaps in wealth and educational attainment and income. On the other hand, the future of the country is in the groups that you are working with. I mean, we are at a point now where a majority of the public school students in the country nationwide, not just a few big cities, are kids of color. And the Census Bureau projected that by 2020, which is functionally the day after tomorrow, a majority of everyone under 18 in the country will be kids of color. And by 2027, a majority of everybody under 30 in the country. So that's kind of like next week, if 2020 is the day after tomorrow. I'm interested, but you are in a place, Bob, that has been on the front line of kind of dealing with what this change. Hazleton is a city that was predominantly white, older, was declining in many ways, has now received this big infusion of a younger Latino population, but there's been a lot of strain in dealing with that. Talk about what has been the point of collision and whether you see kind of a way of coming out of that into something different.
I think it's unusual. It's really pleasing for me to be able to say these words, but I think Hazleton is reaching that tipping point, and that we are looking at some of the positive developments that this new immigration has brought. But it has not been without growing pains, and I'd be the first one to say it. We've had a lot of older residents in particular. You mentioned an aging population. There was a brain drain. Unemployment was sky high. In 2000, unemployment was over 11%. That number is somewhere around 4.75% now. However, the strain of having newcomers who speak with accents or perhaps don't speak the language at all, who have been painted with the broad swath of a brush, increased crime, difficulties in schools, all of the things that you think about that we hear daily in the national news came to a focal point in Luzerne County in Pennsylvania, which was one of the counties that shifted dramatically in this last election. So for us, we're seeing something entirely new, and it has made it a bit of a focal point for the country. We're seeing the people of Hazleton gradually becoming more and more accustomed to the newcomers and seeing the benefits both economically and culturally that the newcomers provide to us. Suddenly we don't have such an aging population. Suddenly our school system is booming. Unemployment, once again, has gone way down. We have new businesses moving in all over the place. And Hazleton is becoming the kind of place that is the new kind of American small town. Yeah. And that's what we believe.
So, Pam, let me ask you this. In Memphis, in your community, are the kids you work with seen as a problem or as an asset?
Oh.
I mean, is there a sense in the community?
To me, as an asset.
Is there a sense in the community that these kids are our future, or is it, or are they seen that way? Is there a kind of an investment in them in that way?
There's definitely an investment with the nonprofits and the demographic that we serve. You know, we've been able to form great partnerships with all the other with the Memphis community, and there's a really strong entrepreneurial ecosystem there. So we've had a lot of support, so we see them as an asset for sure. However, you know, the demographic that we serve right now, poverty rates when we first started actually 3 years ago have been increasing, and they've been at a standstill since. 45%, we have a 45% child poverty rate in Memphis. So yeah, there's a need for more nonprofits to obviously work collaboratively together to help our students. But we definitely see them as an asset. We see them changing the world. It's just going to take 8 years. We can't bridge the poverty, the racial wealth gap within 6 months.
I mean, I think it's clear that you see them as an asset.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about your community. Teresa, what about you? I mean, Texas is a place where, what, 2/3 of the public school students now, I think, are Hispanic. Is there an awareness, is there sufficient awareness of what that means and what it takes to bring those kids into the middle class?
I think there's a good movement. I wouldn't say that we're in a state of complete awareness yet. You know, we still are in Texas. So, but there's definitely a larger awareness. And what we've received is that when we go out and talk to the corporations to say, hey, look, this is your future, not just my future.
That's the point, right?
Right, and it's not just their future, this is your future. So you have the opportunity to invest now for what we're gonna have. You know, the train is coming whether you like it or not, so let's make sure they're educated, they're prepared, they're supported, their families are on board. Let's do that now. And we are seeing a definite change in that whole perspective that they are our future and we're going to invest.
Can I ask you, I mean, talk about working with partners, whether it's government, businesses, other nonprofits. What's the level of awareness on that same question?
I think it really depends on who you're talking about. I think one of the things that I push hard on the media for doing is constantly we have negative depictions of young people in our community who are on the television set. And when you ask folks to come cover a celebration and graduation, that's not newsworthy. And so I think we have to change, what are we tuning into? What do we want to see? There's so much more good happening in our community and in our neighborhoods than there is negative. But that's not what's being put out there. And I think that fosters a level of fear and distrust and otherness. And so then we overly rely on incarceration to solve our problems. And I think that, we need to get our priorities right. I like to say that budgets are moral documents, so I'm going to keep pushing the local administration to invest in our children and to invest in programs that are really truly going to be the root cause of the challenges that we're facing. And we need to humanize all people with one another. And we talked about that a lot last night, is just finding the common humanity among all of us, and that we're really all in this together, whether or not we want to admit that. And so how do we say that we're all going to take responsibility for our community and our kids?
I'm struck that, again, out of this very large competition, that programs focused on building wealth and ownership, two emerged, two directly focused on that. Talk about, Steve, why do you view that as a critical lever, building ownership?
Well, that's critical, because to really impact someone's life financially and economically, not just for their current household, for future generations, the knowledge of financial literacy and the ability to start to accumulate wealth and to understand how you can translate that into greater wealth and opportunities, that's critical. That's what really changes lives. For example, I'll give you an example. Have a young man who's a current employee whose parents went through our program years ago. And because he saw the impact that program had, he wanted to work with the organization. So again, I think the critical piece of it is giving people the knowledge and the skills that are really going to help them move economically and help them build their family and their communities.
Let's bring in the audience if we have a question. Do we have any questions?
My name is Claire with the Convention Center. Melissa, I was wondering if you might be able to talk a little bit more about in this city, this sort of siloed nature of the organizations, as you mentioned, and how we can better approach things more holistically and connect those, because I think one thing that's striking is sort of the number of organizations locally that do good work, but I think we all, as you mentioned, can see the connectivity between their various sectors. And so how do we better connect the dots?
So I think one of the things we need to do at the sort of local political level is ensure that we're not politicizing issues that shouldn't be politicized, that we need to really build a sustainable infrastructure in this community that will withstand not just a 4-year and 8-year term, but that we're truly investing in the future of our city for the long haul. And so I think really looking holistically at how are we shaping departments, how are we deciding on funding priorities, and that's where the public can come in and advocate and go to city council meetings and ensure that the things we care about, if we're trying to get more resources to kids or more prevention dollars or more mental health dollars or more substance abuse dollars, that we are out there and we are saying this is what we care about as a community. I think in terms of partnership, one of the things I've personally been doing is trying to educate myself about issues that don't directly fall under YEP's umbrella, but that impact the lives of all of our young people. So educating myself on housing issues and public transportation and early childhood education. That's not really what we do, yet it is what we do because it impacts our kids and our families. And so a lot of that is how can I educate myself to be a better advocate, to be a better leader, to be a better partner, to be a better citizen, quite frankly. And I think that that's important. We all do that. And when we know that we're not best suited to do something, we find a partner who is, and we build trusting relationships and caring relationships and ensure that we share core values to make sure that we also feel comfortable making those referrals. Because a lot of times, oh, you should partner with this organization, but if you don't have that level of trust or confidence that another organization is going to treat your young people or their families the same way you would, then there's a level of hesitancy. So a lot of this is, I think, about relationship and trust building. We've got to turn over the stage in a moment to our next guest, but let me ask real quick, because I think we have a lot of people in this audience who are either are working in their communities or want to work in their communities. So maybe a quick thought from each of you, on what it takes to build an organization that has a sustainable impact. What is required to have a civic organization that can make a difference and make a difference over time?
From our standpoint, we took a look at this. That was one of the first central questions that we looked at. And we sort of analyzed all the different ways that we could do it. Look at fundraising very seriously, look at possibilities from grants, foundations, and the partnerships that we all find necessary from businesses. all of those things have to be in place. You've got to have the right geography, the space in order to accomplish your mission. And then when you do line it up, most importantly of all, you just got to jump. You just got to do it. Most of us know what the right thing to do is. And it's just that little push. You get a group of people together who have the right ideas, who have the right hearts, and just make it happen. And I'd encourage every one of you to do so as well.
I'll say partnership, collaboration, and Melissa, the point of like a trusting collaborations, finding those people in your community and outside of your community that that you guys collectively can make a greater impact, I think is huge. And then one thing that I do every morning is that I ask myself, why did I get started in this in the first place? What was the passion that moved me to take that leap? And that helps me every day to stay committed and motivated. And I think in this work, it can be draining, and you have to find something that's going to keep pushing you every single day to fight harder and to work harder for the families that you serve.
I'd have to say, like everyone else, partnerships is realizing that we can't do this alone. We need all the help we can get, and we either all come out together or we all sink together.
I would say drive, teamwork, partnership, and really planning a model of sustainability and seeing how can, if certain funders decide not to fund you, can you close that gap, and how can you move your organization to where it can be self-sustaining or as best as possible.
And I think I would say it's about humility and not having an ego about the work. And I think that too often we have issues where you have someone who's a charismatic leader, they go away, we haven't built the infrastructure or the groundwork to sustain the work. And if you're doing this, it shouldn't be about you, it shouldn't even be about your organization, it should be about trying to make greater change. And I think that we all need to continue to challenge ourselves to be the best that we can be as we're helping to be leaders in this space.
Well, with leadership like this, I think you can understand why these were the organizations that rose to the top of the list. So would you join me in honoring again the 2018 Renewal Award leaders? Thank you. Thank you all.